On November 2nd, 2004, President George W. Bush received just over 62 million votes to defeat Massachusetts Senator John Kerry to be elected to a second term as President of the United States. Just 5 months earlier, on May 26, 2004, Fantasia Barrino defeated Diana DeGarmo to be crowned Season 3's American Idol. On that night, there was approximately 65 million votes cast by telephone and text message. What this means is that there was approximately 3 million more votes cast in a television singing contest than there was to elect possibly the most powerful person in the world. Madam Contest Chair, fellow Toastmasters, honored guests, and anybody concerned about American democracy. During every presidential election, approximately half of the American voting eligible population stays at home and does not vote. Voter turnout during state and local elections is oftentimes much worse than that. Today in our look at Simon Cowell's Guide to American Democracy, we are going to see that we need increased voter turnout in our country through the viewing of 3 of my own Little Idol episodes. Our first Idol episode goes back to the fact that American Idol has been so successful in garnering the votes of the American people, something I have titled Idolocracy. Perhaps we should be looking towards Simon Cowell for advice on how to raise our voter turnout. First of all, we would have to lower the voting age to anybody who could successfully complete a text message. Second, we would have to vote off a member of the U.S. Senate every week until the last person standing was declared President of the United States. But since we are unlikely to receive the support of a t-shirt wearing British man to improve our country, we're going to have to work on convincing the American people that higher voter turnout is going to make our country better. When looking at recent voting trends, it's easy to see major differences in how different demographic groups vote. Younger Americans, lower income Americans, Americans of certain ethnicities, and Americans with moderate political views are less likely to show up to the polls on election day. Higher voter turnout means greater proportional representation from all of these groups. And it means that if a politician wants to get reelected, they're going to have to represent their entire constituency and not just the people who usually vote. This also means that politicians are going to have to create policies that benefit all people, which will only benefit our nation as a whole. Next up in our Toastmasters TV guide is an episode entitled The Sanjaya Effect. Perhaps one of the most interesting storylines of Season 6 of American Idol was the rise to fame of Sanjaya Malakar. The flamboyant and often overly dramatic teenager was considered by many outside sources to be the worst talent remaining in the final rounds of that season. But he was able to maintain his position on the show due to his devoted young female fan base. What these screaming and sobbing 13-year-old girls were able to figure out that the rest of the country has not is that every vote counts. We have seen many examples of extremely tight elections. Perhaps the most famous recent example occurred in the 2000 presidential election, when George W. Bush received 537 more votes than Al Gore in the state of Florida, thus delivering him the electoral votes for that state and ultimately the presidency of the United States. These 537 votes out of the 6 million cast in Florida represent under 1% of the votes cast in that state. A few non-voters showing up to the polls and voting for Vice President Gore could have easily swayed the election towards him. It is not a political statement to say that this country would have been operated in a very different way had a few non-voters voted. But perhaps the most amazing story occurred in 1969 in the country of Zanzibar, now a part of Tanzania, when the Afro-Shirazi Party took control of the country by winning the parliament by a single seat. One of these seats was won by a single vote. Imagine the power of a single voter deciding who controls an entire country. Higher voter turnout means that tough decisions made in close elections are decided by a larger group of people who have diverse knowledge and understanding and would be able to pick better politicians who will make better decisions for the United States. But before you turn the channel on me, we're going to look at our third and final Idol episode entitled Tuesday Night Obligations. A few months ago, I attended a Super Bowl party in my home state of Minnesota. And as conversations with me often go, the talk soon turned to politics. And I was attempting to convince my Minnesota resident friends to attend the Super Tuesday presidential caucuses that would be taking place 2 days later on Tuesday night. One of my friends told me that she would not be able to attend the caucuses on Tuesday night. Why? You guessed it. She would be too busy watching American Idol. While there hasn't been a lot of bloodshed in our country over the right to watch television, the right to vote has been one of our most fiercely fought for rights. 3 of the United States Constitution's 17 amendments passed after the Bill of Rights are directly related to suffrage rights. The 15th Amendment guaranteed blacks the right to vote, the 19th Amendment guaranteed women the right to vote, and the 26th Amendment lowered the voting age to 18. We have seen numerous examples throughout history, whether it be Hitler's Germany or Milosevic's Yugoslavia, where the people have given up their right to vote to a popular leader, only to see their country degrade into a dictatorship filled with chaos and corruption. If we do not use our right to vote, we will lose it, and it is up to us to maintain high levels of political participation so our country can be as great as it can possibly be. Today we have viewed 3 Idol episodes. In Idolocracy, we learned that we should vote because it will make our country better. In the Sanjaya Effect, we learned that every vote counts. In Tuesday Night Obligations, we learned that we should vote because it is our democratic duty to do so. After Fantasia's big night on May 26, 2004, she went on to record a double platinum album, received 4 Grammy nominations, and became a star in a Broadway play. With a little bit of effort from the American people, we can rise voter turnout rates and elect triple platinum politicians who will be able to make our country better for our American Idol watching grandchildren and children for many years to come.